everyone, welcome to the Hindu Current Affairs for Beginners by Law Excellence. Before starting our today's session, first let us see answer for the question from a previous video. With regard to the National Register of Citizens, consider the following. It is a list of citizens for all over the country. This statement is incorrect because it is a list of citizens in the state of Assam only, not for the entire country. All Indian origin people, including from Bangladesh, who entered India before 1966 were deemed to be the citizens according to this National Register of Citizens. Yes, this statement is correct. So as only 2 is correct, the answer here is B, 2 only. Now let's start our today's session, and these are all the topics that we are going to cover in our today's video. Our first article is China places hold on listing Azhar as designated terrorist. In our yesterday's video, we have seen about this UNSC 1267 committee. And this article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. In this video, now let us see what is this listing process, how it will be listed, how a person or an entity will be listed in this committee. First, all the Security Council committees. We know that there are 3 Security Council committees that deal with counter-terrorism. Among that, one is this 1267 committee. So, all the Security Council committees, they are composed of member state representatives from 15 member nations of this United Nations Security Council. And out of these 15, 5 are permanent and 10 are non-permanent members. And these 5 permanent members are China, France, US, UK and Russia. And these non-permanent members, the 10 non-permanent members are the rotating members. This committee takes the decisions based on consensus, that is based on an agreement. This committee will take the decision. And this is the 4th time that India is bidding to list this Jaish-e-Mohammed founder Masood Azhar as a designated terrorist under this UNSC 1267 committee. But it has been put on a technical hold by China. So once it is put on a technical hold, this case will be delayed for 3 months before it can come back to the committee. This is what happened even this 4th time. China has placed a hold on listing Azhar as designated terrorist. The next article is West Nile fever case in Malappuram. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of issues related to health. This entire article is not of importance, but here there is mention of a disease known as West Nile fever. This is important. This is a viral infection that is spread by mosquitoes and can even cause neurological diseases as well as death in people. This is first detected in West Nile district of Uganda. West Nile is a district in Uganda, and later it is identified in birds in the Nile Delta region in 1953. According to the World Health Organization, this virus is a member of Flavivirus genus. This is the same family of virus to which Zika, dengue, yellow fever and this Japanese encephalitis belongs to. How will this virus spread, or what is the way for transmitting this disease? How it gets transmitted? This disease is transmitted to the humans through mosquito bites, and these mosquitoes, they will become infected when they feed on these infected birds, which will circulate the virus in their blood for a few days. And this virus will get transmitted into the mosquito's salivary glands, from where it is injected into the humans as well as animals through the mosquito bite. And this virus can multiply in the process and it can even cause illness. What are the symptoms of this West Nile virus? This infection can result in West Nile fever or it can cause severe West Nile disease. People who are infected with this virus, they'll suffer from fever, headache, fatigue, body aches, vomitings, and even occasionally with some skin rashes. So is there any treatment for this West Nile disease? No. The people who are infected with the virus, they have to be hospitalized and they have to be put on respiratory support and intravenous fluids, that is the IV fluids. And there is no vaccine for this virus is available in case of humans. The next article is Swachh Sarvekshan rankings criteria myopic, says Center for Science and Environment Study. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of environment. So from this article, from the prelims point of view, we should know about this Swachh Sarvekshan rankings. This Swachh Sarvekshan 2019 has covered all the urban local bodies in the country, making it the largest cleanliness survey in the world. According to these rankings, if we see the performance of various states, here Indore is ranked as the cleanest city for the third year. Even the second and third positions in the category were grabbed by Ambikapur in Chhattisgarh and Mysore in Karnataka. And Bhopal is the country's Swachh capital. New Delhi Municipal Council area was given the cleanest small city award. Uttarakhand's Gauchar was given with best Ganga town, and Ahmedabad was bagged with cleanest big city award, and Raipur was given with fastest moving big city award according to this Swachh Sarvekshan rankings of 2019. If we see the conclusion of what are the findings from this survey is, cleanliness should be integral to the behavior of every citizen in order to make it effective and sustainable. Many people pay attention to personal hygiene, but they remain apathetic to public and community cleanliness. So change in this mentality is important for achieving the goals of Swachh Bharat. And here this article, according to the Center for Science and Environment Study report, it is saying that these awards were implemented in the cities, only those which have adopted various cleanliness measures. The next article is Much to Gain if Paris Climate Goals are Met. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of environment. Here a report was released known as Global Environment Outlook report was released, and it is prepared by the United Nations Environment Program. Now let us see some of the highlights of this report. According to this report, India can save at least $3 trillion, that is 200 trillion rupees approximately, in healthcare costs if it implements its policy initiatives that are in line with the climate change by the end of this century. And damage to the planet is so heavy that even people's health is being threatened because of this reason. It said about millions of premature deaths that could be seen by the mid-century, especially in the cities and regions in Asia, Middle East and Africa, if the government fails to take environmental protections. And the third thing is, it spoke about India's commitments to reduce the emissions intensity of its GDP by 33 to 35% compared to 2005 levels by 2030. This is it. India has committed to reduce its emissions, and India has committed to increase its electricity generation from fossil free energy sources. It is not from the fossil energy sources but from fossil free, that is like solar energy, wind energy, to 40% by 2030. And another commitment of India is it has committed to create additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons through additional forest as well as tree cover, that is through this plantations. These three commitments were stated by the country, and this report has found that India is on track to achieve these two goals, that is to reduce the emissions intensity and electricity generation. But in order to achieve this 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway, it have to abandon the plans to build new coal-fired power plants. Then only the goal of increasing the temperature by 1.5 degrees can be attained. The next article is India-Pakistan talks on Kartapur today. This article comes under GS paper 1 under the topic of culture. From this article, now we are going to see about this Kartapur corridor. This Kartapur Gurudwara is a shrine where Guru Nanak Dev has spent his last 18 years of his life. And this Gurudwara in Kartapur is on the banks of river Ravi, which is 120 kilometers northeast of Lahore. And this shrine is visible from the Indian side because the Pakistani authorities, they usually trim the elephant grass which will obstruct the view. All the Indian Sikhs, they will gather in large numbers for darshan of this Gurudwara from the Indian side, and binoculars were installed at Gurudwara Dera Baba Nanak. So now a corridor is going to be built to connect these two Gurudwaras. That is, this corridor will connect the holy shrines of Dera Baba Nanak Sahib, which is in Gurdaspur district of Punjab in India, with Gurudwara Darbar Sahib in Kartarpur in Pakistan. And this corridor will provide visa-free access. It will provide visa-free access to the shrine when it is ready on both sides. The next article is We Want All Nations to Stop Buying Iran Oil. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. So from this article, now here we are going to see about a concept known as Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action or Iran Deal. This Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, it is an agreement of China, France, Germany, Russia, UK, US and the European Union with Iran, signed in 2015. According to this agreement, Iran has agreed to make some changes to its nuclear program in order to ensure that this nuclear program is not going to threaten the regional stability of the region. And in return, for the United Nations, the European Union and the US has agreed to dilute their sanctions against Iran. And nuclear related sanctions on Iran were lifted by the United States in 2016. US has withdrawn from this Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, and US sanctions will be reimposed on Iran. Other nations who are participating like France, Germany, UK, European Union, they have expressed disappointment over the move, and they continue to remain as part of this Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So according to this, how it is going to affect the oil prices? The sanctions on Iran, they have the potential to increase the oil prices. And the OPEC, Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries, in order to control or to arrest this continuous decrease in the oil prices, they have decided to cut its output. That is, they have decided to reduce the supply. So as the supply is reduced, then the oil prices have increased. Then US has brought in its own federal law known as Countering American Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. According to this federal law, the countries that were having relations with Iran, Russia and North Korea, if they were having military and trade relations with these countries, and even on those countries, America is going to impose sanctions according to this federal law. So, what is its effect on India? According to India's import bill, 25% has increased its oil imports from Iran from 2015. Now, Indian imports of petroleum and its products are from Iran and they have been doubled since 2015. And these sanctions will prompt India to reduce its purchases from Iran. And the increase in crude oil prices will make the import more expensive and it will add to the current account deficit of the country. Later, the US has exempted some countries like China, India, Italy, Greece, Japan, South Korea from these sanctions. This concept is known as significant reduction exemptions. Only these countries were exempted from these sanctions, and they also had this time limit only up to March of 2019. The next article is CBDT yet to set up angel tax exemption infrastructure. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy. So, from this article, what is important here is we should know what is meant by a startup and what is this angel tax. We have seen about these so many times in our previous video, and with the latest updates we have covered in detail about this startup and angel tax in our 22nd February video, and this is the timing. It starts at 1 minute 5 seconds and ends at 12 minutes 8 seconds. Do watch this video for complete details of this startup and angel tax and the new rules that were brought in regarding this. So in brief, we know that angel tax is a 30% tax that is levied when startups receive angel funding at a valuation higher than its fair market value. Then this will be counted as income to the company and that income will be taxed. We know who are these angel investors. These are the investors who will invest on the idea which is at risk. For example, there is Mr. A, he wants to start a venture and his business model is a bit risky and banks have declined to give him the funding. At this point of time, the people who believe in his idea and invest, this is the initial capital, then those people were known as angel investors and those funds are known as angel funds. If these angel funds are given to this startup A at a valuation which is higher than the fair market value, then that amount will be considered as income to the company and it will be taxed at the rate of 30%. This is known as the angel tax. So now, most of the companies have applied saying that we are certified as startups and we come under exemption for this angel tax. It is the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, DPIIT, which has to send these names of the startups that were exempted from this angel tax to the Central Board of Direct Taxes. So this article is all about still the infrastructure to exempt these startups from angel tax has not been built. The next article is RBI to inject liquidity via Forex swaps. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy. Now from this article, now we are going to see about this Forex swaps. This is the new tool to enhance liquidity in the system through which the Reserve Bank of India will buy $5 billion from the banks. It is going to buy these $5 million from the banks in a swap deal that RBI will inject nearly 35,000 crores into the system. And these banks, they have to give their dollars. They have to park the dollars that they had with RBI with a deal to buy back these dollars from RBI after a specified period of time, that is 3 years. And these dollars that were raised by the Reserve Bank of India will reflect in their Forex, that is foreign exchange reserves. This is a new method by RBI to convert dollars into rupee. Here what the RBI is going to do is it is going to inject money into the market by taking off all the dollars with the banks and giving them the rupees, and there is a condition that banks has to buy back those dollars within 3 years. On March 6th, the Reserve Bank of India is going to conduct a long-term buy-sell swaps for converting these dollars into rupees. Previously, what the RBI used to use an instrument known as open market operations. What is this open market operation? Open market operation means buying and selling of government securities in the open market, and this is done by the central bank in a country. When central bank wants to infuse liquidity, that is, it wants to infuse money into the market, then this will buy these government securities in the open market. This is the way it will provide the commercial banks with liquidity. Whereas in contrast, when it wants to take away all the money in the market, it will sell these securities so that this liquidity will be reduced. So the central bank will indirectly control the money supply and influences the short-term interest rates. The next article is India gets first TIR shipment through Chabahar port from Afghanistan. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy and also under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. So from this article now let us see what is this TIR shipment. It is the Customs Convention on International Transport of Goods. This is an international transit system under the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. This convention will facilitate the movement of goods within and among the parties to this convention. At present, there are 76 parties to this convention, including European Union. India became the 71st country to ratify the United Nations TIR convention in 2017. The benefits of this convention is that the inspection of goods at intermediate borders as well as physical escorts on the route can be avoided by joining in this convention due to reciprocal recognition of customs controls. This will avoid the clearances at border crossing points and ports that were congested, because under this convention, customs clearance can take place at internal customs locations, and movement under this convention is allowed only for checking the seals and the external conditions of the load compartment or the container, but they will not open the boxes and they will see the physical content. They will only check the seals and even the document. Here the carnet means it is a kind of passport or a document that will have information about this goods, and these goods will be sealed. Once we are joined in this convention, only this report, detailed report will be checked and only the seals will be checked, but these seals will not be opened and the goods will not be checked. This will serve as a guarantee for customs duties and taxes and traffic in transit. So there is no need of payment of taxes like customs tax and duties on the way. This will serve as an instrument for movement of goods along the international north-south transport corridor, particularly using the ports in Iran like Chabahar port. This will help in boosting the trade with Central Asian countries and other Commonwealth of independent states. And this convention will cover the customs transit, the movement of these goods by road as well as other modes of transport like railways, inland waterways, maritime transport, as long as at least one part of the entire transport is through road. So now India has got its first TIR shipment through this Chabahar port from Afghanistan. The next article is Only Growth Can Solve Jobs Agrarian Distress. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of agriculture. From this article, we can see about a concept known as minimum support price. It is the price at which government will purchase the produce from the farmers when the market rates of that produce were below than the minimum support price that was announced by the government before sowing season. Government will announce the minimum support price. For example, let us take paddy. This will be announced before sowing itself. But after harvest, if the market price of this paddy fluctuates, if it is less than this minimum support price, then government will purchase the paddy produced from farmers at this price that was announced before the sowing season. Who will decide this? It is the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs will decide this based on the recommendation of Commission for Agricultural Costs and Production. They will decide this minimum support price by considering various costs of production and recommend it to the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. Now let's see our today's prelims questions. Who among the following publishes the Global Environment Outlook? And the next question is, with regard to the Forex swaps, consider the following statements. Try to answer these questions and post your answers in the comment box. And in our tomorrow's video, we'll see a detailed explanation for these questions. Thank you.